Good morning, Gamecock fans. JC Shurburtt here with another episode of Coffee. Today is Thursday, June 26th, the year of our Lord 2025. Certainly appreciate you being here with me today. Apologize for yesterday being out. Some unforeseen circumstances happened. But back today, God willing, and the creek don't rise. We'll have a show this afternoon with Phil and myself, and the morning show obviously kicks off. Um, at 10. So you get to listen to that. Chief Sports live streams inside the Gamecock shows are on hiatus starting next week. I'll have coffee intermittently, just about every day, but I'll let you guys know. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel if you have not already to stay updated, because sometimes we update the schedule on the messages that you guys can see. Also, send those out to Club Chief members. If you join through our YouTube channel, you get a special little email. But anyway, yeah, it's been rough. I mean, it's been one of those things where it came off a trip that was kind of my vacation. I explained to that the other day, and then something just hit that caused me to be out a couple of days, and that's always frustrating from the standpoint of not being consistent with this, and that's unacceptable when it comes to the work. And but sometimes things just can't be helped. As they say, life happens. And I have learned that lesson since I've been in my 40s for a long time. But certainly glad to be here with you guys today, talking a little Gamecock football. As always, basketball. Colin Murray Boyles drafted number 9 overall by the Toronto Raptors in the NBA draft yesterday. That's good for the program. There's been it's been a period of about 19 years since the Gamecocks had a first rounder. I don't remember them having a top 10 pick in my lifetime. The NBA draft's a little different than the NFL draft as far as the number of spots. And you have to be really good, and happy for him. Absolutely. If he was going to get picked in the top 10, there really was no decision as far as coming back or not. The money's just really, really good for those high-end NBA draft picks. Part of it's scarcity because there's not a lot of them, and it's guaranteed money. So hats off to him. I think big picture wise, Lamont Paris, it always helps in recruiting. In football, it definitely does. The more NFL draft picks you have, because everybody thinks they're going to the NBA, NFL, whatever. That's good. Basketball is a little different. I mean, does it mean, what does it really mean? I mean, I think Washington State had a top whatever draft pick. Rutgers had like 2 of the top 5 or 6. I don't have it in front of me. I don't think Rutgers made the tournament last year. They had a losing record. The Gamecocks have number 9. They went 12-20. Texas and Oklahoma had high draft picks. They were kind of toward the bottom of that 14 team bunch that made the tournament from the SEC. So I don't know that it necessarily translates. When you have Cooper Flag, that's pretty good. Duke still didn't win at all, but it's been trending that way for a while when it comes to college basketball team success versus superstars. It's just how it's worked now. Maybe that changes. I don't know, but there's a lot of really good college basketball players that don't get the opportunity in the NBA. But Colin Murray Boyles will, and hats off to him. He worked extremely hard. You guys remember, like his freshman year, he had mono, and it made him weaker and kept him out for a while. And he came back like gangbusters and helped lead the Gamecocks to the NCAA tournament that one year. And then last year, he's obviously one of the best players in the SEC. So that's good. It's always good for the program. If you're going to lose a great player, you want him to be drafted as high as possible. Just like in football with TJ Sanders and Nick Emanware leaving early and being drafted high in the second round, that helps your program in kind of residual ways. So hopefully they can capitalize on it and keep it going. It's good to see, especially the last 2 picks, G.G. Jackson and now Colin Murray Boyles, both Columbia players. And for a long time, getting the top players out of Columbia, which is kind of the hotbed, to be honest. I mean, the area around Columbia has a lot of good basketball players, just about every recruiting cycle. So hopefully this gives them another argument to make on the recruiting trail with top local players, and it turns into a positive for the program. I don't make any guarantees about next year's basketball team other than to say that right now the feeling internally is they've got a better group to run, the type of game that Lamont Paris is successful at running. So we'll see. What does that mean win and loss wise? I don't know. I don't make any guarantees either way. I'm not going to say they're going to be awful. I'm not going to say they're going to win 26 games and go to the tournament, but it does set up a little better from a basketball perspective. And according to a report from John Whittle of thebigspur.com, they will fill out another roster spot at some point. So we'll see what happens. Also in his reports, Eli Ellis seems to be looking really good so far since he arrived on campus. And that's a positive thing. That guy, the better he is, the better it is for the basketball program, just because he's got such a following. You want to talk about the new NIL world and things like that. He's known. He's a known entity marketing wise. And so the better he does in college, the better it is for the program. So we'll see. Signs of life there, signs of positivity with Lamont Paris and his basketball program. So it's a big, thick recruiting time. I call it thick because the Gamecocks are in the weeds on a lot of these guys. Look, I think I said on Tuesday that this is the most competitive period for recruits that I've seen. I mean, Carolina is going up against a who's who, programs that have recruited very, very well for a long, long time, and they're formidable. And you don't get everybody, and the Gamecocks won't get everybody. But what you want to do is get your share. And I know there's a lot of predictions are out there. Crystal Ball, my friend Steve Wiltfong, has kind of predicted against the Gamecocks in some of these situations. And then, of course, everybody comes back and says, well, he's been wrong before. Everybody's been wrong before, folks. I have a crystal ball in for JB Shabazz right now that I don't think it's going to be the Gamecocks, per the outstanding work of Hale McGranahan. But I don't know if it's going to be Ohio State or Tennessee. So who knows? Maybe the Buckeyes there. The Buckeyes, I've said before, Urban Meyer was lamenting their offensive line during the year, talked about how nobody can get them. So they're not hunky-dory up there on the O-line. And he's a big, strong tackle. Kamari Blair, the Tennessee visit, same with Joel Combe. The Vols are very formidable in recruiting. And I said this a while back about Combe specifically. They do very, very well in Cobb County, Georgia. So if Combe ends up at Tennessee, then that's just the trend continues for the Volunteers in that part of the Atlanta metro. Noah Clark, I'm probably going to put in a crystal ball. Tony Morrell from the Big Spur put in a crystal ball for him last week. I think it was Monday or this week, Monday. I keep getting ahead. I keep thinking it's like the 30th. It's the 26th. You said that at the top of the show, JC. Get your date right, son. So it's he put it in on the 23rd. I like where Carolina stands. Him coming back for an unofficial and attend the camp and stuff was awfully positive. Will Wade, of course, is at NC State, so I will use a Will Wade saying. He's the basketball coach there now. Unless NC State made him a strong ass deal, I think Noah Clark will be a Gamecock when all is said and done. So I'm probably going to put in a prediction for him. But again, could be wrong. Been wrong before, been wrong again. Desmond Green, he comes to South Carolina, has a great official visit. What my friend Cox by 90 said on the Big Spur the other day makes sense. If all things were equal, he'd probably come to South Carolina, but there is a hunt for NIL funds, and it just kind of depends on who wants to take the risk in a big way for him. I like him as a player. I'm not down on him at all. Our guys at 24/7 don't have him very high. He's like a mid 3-star. Others have him up there in the top whatever. I tend to lean more toward Desmond as a fringe top 247 guy that could go either way, but his size and athleticism, makes me like it. But he's probably going to go to Florida, and according to Hale, again, we probably won't even cover that on thebigspur.com, which stinks in a way. But you have to do things that make sense in recruiting, and there's only so much NIL and rev share these days, and if you can't be risky with it. So, I get it. He's a guard, and they could play. Maybe he could be a tackle. I don't know. He's a guard. I saw him and Blake Frank side by side, and they look very similar. And Blake Franks is a swing guy, so maybe he's a tackle, but who knows? You hate to see Florida come into the state and get a player, but it's not that. Yeah, it's not anything but dollars right there. And Georgia is probably going to fill their last spot with someone else on the interior as well. Maybe not. That decision hadn't been completely made, but the crystal ball predictions rolling in for Florida right now on 24/7 Sports. And on these predictions, uh, kind of how this works is you're basically it's tough, and I'm not. I saw some people kind of go after Wilt Fong or whatever, and I'm not going to do that. I've known Steve for years, and he does bat a high percentage with his predictions, and he can change it or whatever. And if a lot of folks have griped since we started Crystal Ball, and I was in those meetings when we started it many moons ago at 24/7 Sports, and had a big hand in kind of creating it. You have to be able to change your prediction because you know what? The facts change. This is not I'm going to, lock in my bet. It's not a futures. Like the Gamecocks have what, 18 to 1 odds or something to win the SEC this year. If I put money on it and the Gamecocks end up, winning I'm going to win some money. But in recruiting, you don't do that. It's not about winning money. It's about giving fans an accurate portrayal of where the recruitment stands at this time. I know we had a Fong bomb for Texas for Samari Smoke Matthews. Here's what I can report there. And I said this earlier this week. And I checked with some Texas sources too, and they thought heading into the South Carolina visit, they were in good shape. After that, it's gotten really fuzzy out in Austin about this. And there's some confidence on the part of the Gamecocks. There has been since the weekend. Um, I was told as far as the NIL talk with him, a lot of it was overblown. As far as the crazy amounts out there. And, I think the Gamecocks are looking good. I say that right now. I have not put in a crystal ball pick for Samari Matthews, but I say that right now because I think the Gamecocks have the momentum, and he's moved his decision day back. It's supposed to be August. It's going to be in July now, I think July 11th. And so it could go back and forth many, many ways between now and the time he decides to, whatever he's going to do, pick up a hat, release a video, whatever that looks like at the time. I love that player. I love him as a player. And I'll say that even if he goes to Texas, I think, some people think he could be a safety. So he's listed as an athlete. I keep remembering this, Stephon Gilmore. Some folks thought that about him too. And I think it's because of the build. He's built more like a safety, a longer, taller guy. And so people are just like safety. I think he has the hips to play corner. He's physical enough to play corner. All that. That's an opinion. I could be wrong, but I think the Gamecocks are in really good shape. And Jazavian Currents knows him. Sequel Patterson knows him. They all kind of know each other. Tamarian Watkins. They all know each other, and so that's always helpful. It's going to be helpful with Josh Dobson too, the 2027 corner that's ranked very high. That's going to be a dogfight. So that's always helpful when everybody's like, hey, let's go to the same place and win a championship and all that good stuff. Pierre Dean. Let's talk about him for a little bit. This is much closer than I thought it would be, but simply because his brother goes to Georgia. And Georgia's kind of the school that said, well, how about defense? And that's usually a sign, okay, I'm going to play defense now. So that school, that's kind of talking to you about defense, and Carolina was fine with it too. Um, if he's going to say, okay, now I'm a defensive lineman, and it was that school's idea, you think, well, that's a sign for the red and black to land him. And I know everybody's sick of losing defensive tackles to UGA. It seems like Gamecocks lose every since Rick Sandage. The Gamecocks have lost almost every one of them that Georgia's been involved with, including Xavier McLeod, who transferred out and went to Georgia. And that stinks. And we know that. Everybody knows that. But, I do think it's much closer than people think. I think at different times, Carolina's been trending here. And it wouldn't surprise me at all to see the Gamecocks pull the upset. I'm not ready to do that. I still kind of have a Georgia feel for him. And of course, Wiltfong did put in a crystal ball prediction for him. And what he's doing is just what I'm doing, reading the tea leaves, and that happens. And you just do the best you can with these predictions. Uh, and let the chips fall where they may. I mean, these are 17 and 18-year-old kids. You have money considerations now with NIL that factor in certain instances. And you just kind of, which one, where is the most confidence? That's first and foremost. You compare notes school to school with the people you talk to. I've done this before, and then you make the best decision you possibly can. So even though Matthews to Texas per Wiltfong and Dean to Georgia per Wiltfong, there's still a shot with Carolina. I feel better about Matthews than Dean. I'll tell you that right now. And I think that's starting to kind of play out. Darius Gray, the 5-star offensive guard from Richmond, Virginia. This is going to be a dogfight. NFL is the fact. I mean, NFL. NFL is a factor too. NIL is a factor for him. Is this going to be a case where the stronger, longer theory is applicable? And I've had the stronger, longer theory for a while. And again, this is what goes in to crystal ball predictions. Who's been at the forefront of his recruitment the entire time before the 127 different official visits? I'm being facetious about that, but he did take a lot. And I believe in his situation, again, if all things were equal, Darius Gray would be committing to the Gamecocks, but they aren't, as far as, NIL deals and agents and things like that. I feel much better about him than maybe I did heading into the official visit. I think the visit with he and Matthews both went a long way. I can't sit here with a straight face and tell you that Matthews and Gray projected to end up at South Carolina heading into the visit, but these visits are important and they change things. And I think in both of these situations, getting the last one has paid off to a certain extent. Will it be enough to get Carolina over the finish line? And will they go 2-0 against these two guys? I can't tell you that. I'd be lying. I could just tell you I feel better about Matthews than Gray, but I feel better about both than I did heading into the weekend. So there's that with those guys. Sequel Patterson, who I mentioned earlier, still feel very, very good about the now 2026 wide receiver from Indian Land. He was number 18 overall in the country for the 2027 class. That number's changed. He's, I think, 247 now. So at the end of the top 250, I think he'll end up moving up. The other thing about it is you have to keep in mind is that like Donovan Murph last year, he dropped when he reclassified, but then he went to the Under Armour game and balled out and ended up in 2025 class as being ranked relatively high. And so those guys can, even though there's an initial trap door that kind of opens on them and they fall in the rankings, they can move back up. And, talking to Alex Jones from the Big Spur and also Hale, they love this guy. They've seen him in person. I haven't, unfortunately. Maybe one day I will. But I haven't seen him in person. I've seen him on film, and he's outstanding. This is as big time of a commit as you can get, and if you can get him early, great. So I like where the Gamecocks stand there. He's also listed as an athlete because some like him at corner. Gamecocks, of course, Mike Fury, they want him as a wide receiver, and he's a really, really good one. And you start kind of putting the pieces of the puzzle together down the road at receiver. And Jamie Bradford mentioned this on the morning show in a conversation with John Strickland and Mike Morgan the other day that, well, you got 6 freshmen right now, and then you're bringing in more talent. And that, the portal will probably claim a guy or two. That's just how it works. There's only one football, right? And a lot of guys that are really good that are the same age. Uh, but you kind of look down the road, Murph, Gidron, Brian Rowe, Lex Cyrus, Pup Sellers, Malik Clark. Those are all the freshmen. Then you start talking about Sequel Patterson, and then Mazio Bennett is a young player as well, still here. You have Nick Harbor, and Jared Brown and Vendrevious Jacob. Vendrevious Jacobs is the redshirt sophomore, I think. I think Jacobs has a lot, some time left too. So I feel pretty good. The LAS, life after Sellers, right? You start looking down the road, and wow, this could be quite a passing attack because the Gamecocks are projecting to be really good here this year. I look for improvement from the passing game, definitely, as Lenoris improves and the older guys take a step forward and the younger guys kind of fill in the gaps. But, you look 2026, 2027, South Carolina's receiving core could be lethal. You know, they got to get there. It's not just on paper right now, but they could be lethal. And Sequel Patterson certainly would be a gigantic part of that. So I feel really good about him. Speaking of life after Sellers, my crystal ball pick for Landon Duckworth has not changed. Still Carolina Auburn. When could a commitment come? Any day now. Landon had a really good outing at the Elite 11. I talked about that on Tuesday. Passing the football, really quick release with him. I think that release is pretty pretty good. When you talk about the split second when you're trying to find a receiver, it just kind of does that. I like him, and he's a top 60 overall player in the country, ranked kind of around where Aiden Harris is in composite, and certainly one of the best quarterbacks prospect wise in America. I think he combined, his passing acumen that he showed at Elite 11 with what he can do with his legs. And that's a potentially special talent down the road. Carolina could be very fortunate to have him waiting in the wings. And that's not taking anything away from Cutter Woods, who I love as a prospect, and Aaron Nolan, who's got a lot going for him as well. So we'll see. But keep in mind, Duckworth's important because if Sellers does go to the NFL after this coming season and Luke Doty is out of eligibility, um, you're left with Woods and Nolan battling it out. And, if one of those guys loses the battle, would they hit the portal? I can't tell you they wouldn't. And so you're getting kind of thin. They may have to take a transfer portal quarterback as well in this class, but that's common. I mean, I mentioned Ohio State earlier. I mean, they had to do that. They had to take the kid from Kansas State. They won a national championship doing it. It's not. There's no shame in getting a quarterback rental. Quarterback specifically. Even before we had a transfer portal, it's worked out really well for a lot of programs taking transfer quarterbacks. But I still feel really good about Landon Duckworth from Jackson, Alabama. I mentioned Tamarian Watkins. I feel very good about him. He's one, like I said, maybe I'm a little more concerned about it than everybody else, but he's important. Like to me, like if you lost him somehow, and I don't think they will, but if you lost him somehow, it would just be this. It would feel incomplete, right? The class would feel incomplete. So hopefully, Tamarian Watkins from Northwestern in Rock Hill decides to be a Gamecock, and I think it's definitely trending in that way. There have been no signs other than my personal paranoia because I've been listening to my friends who say he's really really good, and then I see the other schools that want him, and I'm like, chances are. I'm not Sherlock Holmes here, but if I do a little investigating, right? And so it's just you just don't want to leak any good players out of Rock Hill ever. And I don't think there's no signs it's going to happen. It's just to me personally, my own. It's kind of like when I worry about the special teams 10 days before kickoff. This year I'm trying not to talk about special teams before because there are a lot of questions there. But it's just kind of like me. So you can rest easy on Tamarian Watkins. Let me worry about it with my own personal paranoia. But I certainly feel good about where the Gamecocks stand. Tilden Riley is a decision coming soon. Carolina or Vandy. Carolina feels pretty good there as far as that goes. He's an academic kid though. Yeah, I feel good there. I think the Gamecocks are in good shape. Joel Combe, who I mentioned earlier, he visits Tennessee, and like I said, Cobb County, Tennessee does really well there. So I don't know, how I feel about him or JB Shabazz. I have no update on Carter Meadows, but the Gamecocks are still right there in the mix. People ask me too about five-star Maryland defensive end commit Zion Ely. And here's the thing about him. He made an unofficial visit for a camp. Sterling Lucas has been in contact with him. It's a wait and see, and here's why. Maryland is not supposed to be very good this year. Their expectations are, shall we say, low. Um, they have a new athletic director. Mike Loxley's been there for a while. They've won some recruiting battles. Uh, they've lost a lot of players in the portal. I mean, Jay Sean Barham is at Michigan now. Remember him? Good player, by the way, really good player. And so, the administration at Maryland may have a decision to make this year. And if that happens, that's kind of the draw is Loxley. He's a good recruiter and has largely been effective in that area. When he was at the University of Illinois under Ron Zook, they came into DC and got Aurelius Ben. Remember him? Wide receiver. Some of you may not remember him. And between him and Isaiah Williams, who they got out of Chicago as a quarterback, the Illini went to the Rose Bowl under Zook and only won 9 games that year. So this year's team, that's the Illini team from this past year that went 10-3 and has gotten more mileage out of beating South Carolina than any school I've ever seen in my whole lifetime of covering Carolina football. Uh, so that team got him beat, but Loxley was a running backs coach there and did a really good job under Zook recruiting and being the OC and all that. So he's got a lot of sizzle there. And so if he goes, depending on who Maryland replaces him with, I don't know that kid's staying close to home. So if that happens, I think South Carolina, I would go Auburn 1 and Carolina 2, maybe 3. Everybody else is going to come in on there. So I don't know that it's a layup for the Gamecocks, but I think the Gamecocks could get a seat at the table. Both Auburn and Carolina have continued to recruit him. I think Auburn's been a little more bold about it. Carolina's been bold, but, kind of taking the other approach of, hey, we're here if you need us and we love you and let's keep in touch. And then this happens. So we'll see if Sterling Lucas can't pull off a big one. If down the road things go south at Maryland, I do think the Gamecocks will be in it. If I had to guess right now, gun to my head, I think Auburn would be that next team, but we'll see kind of how it all plays out right there. So that's kind of where things stand. And again, the prediction thing is, you're dealing with 18-year-old kids, parents, NIL, fit, relationships, visits. It's not easy to predict this stuff, folks. And so, I'm not mad. I mean, I'm not, I don't know that anybody should call anybody out over crystal ball predictions or the prediction machine at On 3 or anything like that. And I'm certainly not. But there's different intel out there, especially when it comes to Matthews. Dean, a lot of people thought he's going to Georgia anyway. Their insiders say, yeah, but Matthews and checking on it on the Texas end, they're very unsure and they felt good going into the Carolina visit. So it's probably Texas and South Carolina there at the end of the day. And certainly the Longhorns aren't any strangers to recruiting at a high level. And there's something about him they really like. And obviously the Gamecocks have recruited him for years, but the stronger, longer theory could apply with Smoke Matthews as well. Samari, yeah, I guess his nickname is out there enough to pass the JC Shurburtt nickname test, right? Smoke. I don't do the nicknames unless it's like I don't just hand people nicknames. Uh, you know, I don't know them personally, so why should I call them by their nickname? A friend of mine one time actually his name is a nickname, and then he gave himself a nickname in high school. How about that? We'll talk about that on the show sometime. The off topic du jour. Anyway, well, that's coffee for today, folks. Just wanted to dive into these predictions. Be back tomorrow, hopefully, with another coffee. And then Chief Sports is on the live shows. The Inside the Gamecock Super Stream is on hiatus until SEC Media Day starts. Also, Late Night Gamecock Show, just as a programming note for those that catch that, they'll be off next week as well. Tailgate Talks with DeMarco and Garcia, also on hiatus, getting ready for their second season. Certainly love our partnership with those guys. You can go back and check out all of their old episodes, either on their YouTube channel, Tailgate Talks 2547, or on the Chief Sports app, which you can download for free on the Apple App Store. Forgive my voice a little bit. It's a little rough today, I know. How's it got to sound like yeah, that kind of thing. But certainly, it's been a pleasure talking to all of you today here about Gamecock recruiting and kind of resetting everything as we head into a big period. This is a big period for Gamecock recruiting for this class. It's has a chance to be a really, really good class, but the competition is as thick as it's been, folks. And you got to get your share. And then we'll see. Keep your in-states in state. Get your out of state, get your share out of state, and then let the chips fall where they may. And then keep recruiting. It's not as common to flip people when you have a good season as it once was. But last year, that kind of fell in the Gamecocks' favor. You had a Christian Ingram that kind of emerged late. Gamecocks got him. You flipped Ajaboy. The offensive tackle from Georgia Tech. Let's just Demola. Let's see that. I need to write these down. Flipped him. Flipped Malik Clark back. So this staff, they keep recruiting. Even if it doesn't go their way in the summer. And then another thing to consider this year, South Carolina traditionally has had a cookout at the end of July. Well, the calendar's changed this year, and the dead period runs through there, so it's dead now, and there's no other cookout. That stinks in a way because that for 2027, that kind of helps lay the groundwork in a lot of ways. Kind of the first big. Oh, we're going to start on the next class in earnest. But they've had enough 2027s come through for visits and stuff this summer. I think they're in good shape. And then the home schedule when you have, Clemson and you have Alabama and you have Oklahoma and you got a night game for Vandy in the opener and then Kentucky. I mean, they got a good home schedule, plenty of time to get players in to experience Williams-Brice Stadium and the game day atmosphere, which absolutely matters with a lot of these guys. It is as good of an atmosphere as there is. Even better than when I was growing up. It's always been a tough place to play. It's always been loud. Fans have always showed up, but it's next level now, thanks to kind of the production that they put on. All right, JC Shurburtt Coffee signing off. See you on the show. Holla at you soon.